When I tried Classic World of Warcraft for the first time ever last month, I thought that I was just going to be making a one-off YouTube video answering a simple question: does this 20-year-old MMO still hold up today? I was slightly shocked that the answer ended up being yes. Oh my god, yes. How is this game still so good? I was even more shocked, though, to see all the positive comments that rolled in after releasing my video saying, not only did you guys love watching it, but you wanted to see a full 1 to 60 series on my warrior. That response made me particularly happy because I am having so much fun diving into Warcraft, I'll happily do more. Like, at this point, I'm not just playing the games, I'm reading the lore books, I'm learning about Blizzard's rise and fall, I am straight up narrating A is for Azeroth to my daughter.
C is for the children of Cenarius. Your dad kind of killed Cenarius. Sometimes dads make mistakes.
But even so, I was still a little bit worried about doing a full 1 to 60 series. Because as great as my first few steps in Classic were, I didn't think there was any way this game could actually keep up that level of quality all the way to 60. Eventually it would get repetitive, I'd run out of things to say, the experience would just level off. Regardless, you guys were so eager to see more that I made myself a deal. I said that I would keep recording for at least a few more levels, and if the game managed to keep up its insane quality, then I would commit to a full series. And it turns out, everything I experienced next was better than anything I'd seen so far. How does this game just get better and better? But before we get into all that, one of the ways that I can tell that I am getting way too deep into a Warcraft addiction is because the other day I had a really good idea. See, my wife and I have been struggling for the past year to decide what kind of art we want to put up in our master bedroom of our house, and for the past year it has just been these bare walls with basically no decoration. But now I know exactly what we need. Arthas, Illidan, Sylvanas. These are the faces I want to look at first thing in the morning when I start my day, and the last thing I want to see before I fall asleep at night. And what better place to get high quality Warcraft art for my walls than the sponsor of today's video, Displate. Displate, of course, is the ultimate place to get premium metal posters featuring genuinely beautiful Warcraft art. When I got to open up mine in the mail, all I could think of was, holy hell, my wife is gonna love this for our bedroom. These posters are so unbelievably cool and quality. Just holding them in your hand, you can feel they're really well made.
Oh my god, yes. I should have got all of the big ones. I didn't get enough big ones.
Hanging them up proved to be unbelievably easy too. You don't need to drill or make any holes in the wall, just use Displate's magnetic mounting system for quick installation, which also allows you to freely swap between plates, making this a super renter-friendly alternative to hanging pictures since there's no damage to your walls whatsoever. If for some reason my wife doesn't love the idea of Sylvanas watching over us as we sleep, it would be super easy to take these down, not that I think I'll ever have to. Even if you're not a Warcraft addict like me though, don't worry. Displate has all kinds of other amazing art from tons of games, movies, and shows. They even have tools you can use to make your own custom posters out of any personal photos or artwork you want to turn into a beautiful wall decoration. And not only that, they are also surprisingly affordable for the quality, at least if you follow the link in my description. Just make sure to use the code GBay at checkout and you will get all the way up to 36% off a bundle of 3 posters. You can get Arthas, Sylvanas, and Illidan for your bedroom too. That is such a good deal. A seriously big shout out to Displate for sponsoring this video and supporting our channel. They are genuinely worth your time, so don't forget to check out the link in the description or pinned comment below. But now, back to the video. Alright, to recap the last episode quickly, my first steps into Classic era WoW have already been filled with tons of exciting moments. I accidentally picked the hardest class to level, which I figured out very early on with lots of struggles. Even so, I was able to make all kinds of friends through early leveling zones that always stopped by to help me, as I was quickly taught the Classic WoW community is apparently the nicest in all of gaming. After reaching level 20, I entered my first dungeon, which gave me a great in-game story, as well as a super fun group challenge, and on top of all of that, I was also introduced to a genuinely fascinating mystery for the Alliance. The capital city of Stormwind has apparently been refusing to help out any of its people, even with all of the bandits and orcs and monsters attacking nearby villages. When other players subtly hinted to me that the story of Stormwind and the Defias Brotherhood continues all the way to max level, I felt really excited. I was going to keep playing WoW regardless of whether I made videos about it or not. I'm sure it's going to be a long time before I max out my character, but MMOs are all about big, long journeys journeys, and it feels great to have this one goal guiding me like a North Star. Especially because I am someone that can get very overwhelmed with excitement and distracted anytime I play an MMO. Case in point, I first logged back onto my character shortly after releasing our last video, and although I was trying to stay focused on our goal, I had also been flooded with tips and tricks from commenters letting me know all sorts of things I missed. Like the auction house, that was the first place I had to stop by since you guys taught me selling items to other players here is way more profitable than just vendoring everything to NPCs, which is a pretty big mistake I'd been making up until this point. Not only that, I also learned I had been unintentionally handicapping myself only using 3 of my 5 bag slots. I thought the only way to get bags was through quests that I'd been doing. I had no idea there was a whole bag vendor right here in the city. I also had no idea until I stopped by the warrior trainer shortly after that you can dual wield weapons as a warrior? That sounds awesome and suddenly brings up tons of questions about what weapon choices I should be using. Before long, I was running all through Stormwind searching for new weapons or armor upgrades. I thought I'd be logging back onto the game eagerly chasing down the stories from our last episode, but WoW just has so many fun systems that can distract you as you dive deeper and deeper. Case in point, one of the things you guys said I had to do right after getting back on was stop by all the profession trainers. Professions are one of the major systems in World of Warcraft, as well as one of the only non-combat activities players get to do. These are sort of WoW's version of skills from other MMOs, activities you might want to do like gathering resources or crafting items. As someone who's played a lot of RuneScape, I'd always kind of looked down on WoW because I heard that this game limits players to only having 2 professions at a time. I mean, I'm sure this is done for some sort of important smart balance reason, but even so, it always seemed kind of disappointing to me. Like, the fantasy world of MMOs can be so fun to explore and interact with beyond just endlessly killing mobs. It kind of stinks that WoW limits the number of ways that a new player can interact with the world of Azeroth. However, I have since learned that I was kind of wrong about WoW's professions, at least a little. Firstly, you aren't limited to 2 professions, you're limited to 2 main professions, but everyone gets to have certain secondary skills that don't count towards that cap, in particular, cooking and first aid. That means you get to have twice as many skills as what I first thought, which is such a fun discovery. I had just been selling all my cooking recipes to vendors until now because I didn't think that I wanted to waste one of my 2 professions on something as boring as cooking, but now I realize I don't have to worry about that at all. I head to the cooking and first aid trainers, excited to start making bandages and frying up boar meat as I begin training those skills, and after seeing some of the other professions I can choose, I decided to stop by the blacksmithing and mining trainers to take up those skills. I figured it would be fun to have at least one gathering and one crafting profession, and those 2 felt like they fit well with my soul. You know, that's what I've spent so much time in video games doing already. But yeah, I didn't make it 2 minutes past logging on before I was getting distracted by all this fun. I spent over an hour just running through old areas I'd already been, training up weapon skills on low-level mobs and looking for mining rocks. After I finally began to come down from the high of mining copper over and over, I gathered myself to refocus and figured that I should probably try and set some sort of goal for this episode to prevent future distractions. So far, I had basically already given myself an overarching goal for this series, which is to reach max level and finish the Defias Brotherhood storyline, whatever that takes. But since that will apparently take a while, I figured I should also have smaller goals for each individual episode in this series, and I came up with a pretty good one. Namely, in every episode, I want to try and find a new story to care about in the world of Azeroth and see if I ever run out. This can be something player-driven, like grouping up with others to do a challenging dungeon, or it could be lore-related. Maybe I'll finally get to follow up on a few Warcraft 3 characters. But in each episode of this series, I want to see if WoW will keep throwing these new experiences my way at the same pace that has been so impressive thus far. That's the mark of how you can tell you're playing a great MMO, if among the thousands of hours of playtime and all the grinding you do, you're still finding as many new exciting moments at hour 1000 as you did back in hour 1. That goal, alongside our more general goal of maxing out my character, gave me some pretty clear targets to aim for in this video. First and foremost, I should aim to level up so I can run stockades, as we had last left off hearing Basil Thread, Van Cleef's lieutenant, would have more for us in our next dungeon. And honestly, I'm also just so excited to run stockades. If the stockades are 1/10 as good as the dead mines were as a dungeon, it's it's gonna be so fun to run through. We probably need to get around level 30 or so before we try to run it, which means that we have plenty more adventuring to do, and I figured the first thing I should try to do is one more Dead Mines run. My first time through the dungeon, I passed on almost all of the loot and didn't know what I was doing. If nothing else, it would be good practice to go do another run. While I was waiting around looking for a group though, I noticed some ghouls that had risen in a nearby graveyard in Moonbrook, which is so cool. I don't think these guys are here during the daytime, are they? I didn't even realize that some events in WoW can only happen at certain real world hours. Okay, I gotta stop getting distracted by how cool WoW's world is. Before long, I found a new group where I'd be tanking once again, partially because I wanted to keep practicing tanking, but also because I wanted to try using an add-on, which is probably something I should mention about this series. WoW is apparently a game that has a million add-on programs players like to use, which allows them to do all kinds of things. It's how the game goes from looking like a normal video game to not looking like a video game if you ever try to open up a WoW stream on Twitch. I mean, these intimidating interfaces might have been the single biggest thing that kept me from trying WoW for so many years. However, some add-ons do appear to be necessary for better or worse. The most popular add-on, from what I can tell, is one called Details that can track how much damage each member of a party is doing, as well as how much threat everybody has. If you remember from last episode, I learned that threat seems to be the mechanic that determines who an NPC is aggressive towards in a party, and if you're tanking, you should be spamming certain abilities that make sure you have the highest threat. Unfortunately, the only way to track threat seems to be through this add-on. Like, this isn't something you can do natively in-game, and because of that, when I tank in a dungeon, I do want to be running Details just to make sure I do a good job. I don't want to let my teammates down. That said, I waffled on this a little bit, but I think I'm going to avoid using any other add-ons for the rest of my series if possible. I don't ever want to mess around with quest helpers or other conveniences that might take away from the magic I'm experiencing discovering the game for the first time, and I also don't want to change my HUD to anything that makes it look different from what a kid would be seeing back in 2004. Anyway, this second Dead Mines run ended up being much smoother than our first, as I wasn't quite so nervous, having become familiar with the dungeon's mechanics. We started off farming the undead mining team long enough to make sure I actually got all my union cards, before then running through the dungeon at a really solid pace. I felt like such a good tank when I could see that I was actually keeping aggro on all the bosses, which made this add-on feel so nice to use, and it made me kind of mad at Blizzard. Like, this kind of feels integral to playing the game. If seeing an NPC's threat is allowed, let me do it in the actual game. Don't require me to download some program from a third-party website. It feels a little unfair, like everybody's not on a level playing field, but maybe that's just me being an old League player who still remembers when Riot banned Curse Voice because that gave League players an unfair advantage having voice chat. As we continue our way through the dungeon, our fight on Sneed is an exciting one for me as he ends up dropping 2 items. The Taskmaster Axe is something I think I can use, although not currently, as I haven't trained two-handed axes, so I just hit greed on that. However, the Buzzsaw, on the other hand, is a direct upgrade to what I'm currently using, and you guys said, if it's a direct upgrade, I'm not being greedy by hitting need and taking it away from all my nice other teammates. So I need, and I get it, and I am very excited to have obtained an awesome new sword. I am especially happy when nobody yells at me for taking the loot from everyone else. I don't know why, but I still feel so selfish hitting need on something. It's amazing to me the WoW community doesn't abuse this system. Like, this whole thing is basically a prisoner's dilemma. The fact that a person could, in theory, just wait out a timer to see everybody else hit greed, which would then guarantee that they have the ability to steal an item by hitting need, but then they just greed too and everybody keeps respecting the system? That is so awesome. As we continue on, the rest of the dungeon goes smoothly, and we do get a few more drops that I probably could have need rolled for. I mean, these are weapons that I can use and likely are more upgrades, but I've already need rolled for 1 item, so I just greed for the rest and don't win much else, which is fine. I just want to keep being as nice to everybody else in this community as they've been to me. After taking down Van Cleef for a second time, this time we choose to run out of the dungeon through a designated exit area that I didn't realize was there. We had hearthed back in our first episode. But I wish I did this run the first time, because not only did we get to have this really beautiful and serene moment with our group before we disbanded for the night, but I also finally made the connection. Van Cleef was planning on taking his ship through these tunnels to the sea, where across it lies the city of Stormwind. He was planning on destroying the city city he had built. That is such great poetic storytelling. But of course, that's an old story we've already all but concluded. I still need to go out and find something new. Following that Dead Mines run, I flew off to Stormwind to turn in my last dungeon quest and sell any of the loot that I did pick up at the auction house. And it was around now that I realized that I can also sell certain items that are required for particular quests. That instantly made my mind race with plans of getting rich. Like, what if I just farmed a bunch of these items while I was leveling through each zone? That would probably be a pretty good moneymaker. I've been so used to playing an Iron Man in RuneScape for so long that it was actually kind of exciting trying to imagine how I might be able to exploit a player economy, which exploitation sounds bad, but you guys said that I need to be saving up for gold so I can get a mount when I hit level 40. It was in the middle of all this scheming and planning, though, in Stormwind, that something happened that I was not expecting. City centers in WoW apparently have in-game bells that chime on the real world hour, just like this actually is some medieval fantasy world. Oh my god, this was so cool to notice. I've already geeked out plenty at all the touches of flavor this game has that makes this world feel like it comes alive. Touches I don't think I've ever noticed another MMO take the time to implement. You know, maybe that's why there's never really been a WoW killer. Honestly, I wish Blizzard leaned in harder on these moments sometimes. Like, it would be cool if I didn't have an in-game clock underneath my minimap. That would make it feel even more immersive, just trying to track time in-game by counting the bell chimes on every hour. Although that does sound kind of predatory. Isn't that what casinos do to make people lose track of time? Anyway, I stayed in Stormwind for a bit, smelting some of the copper I'd mined in the Dead Mines. It felt good to make a bit of progression on my profession levels, even if there was still a way to go. All my influx of cash from the dungeon also allowed me to head off to the warrior trainer to train up some of the abilities that I hadn't been able to afford before, leaving me eager to go and try out anything new I've unlocked. And my eagerness to try out new abilities in combat is what led to what might have been a pivotal moment for my leveling journey. After getting my unlocks, I flew off to Red Ridge in search of more tasks, as I'd completed basically everything in Elwyn and Westfall, but there were still plenty of quests in Lakeshire to do. I actually hadn't done that much in Red Ridge at this point and gave myself the task of clearing out the rest of the Fog of War on my map, hoping to knock out a few quests in that western region. Which, side note, can I say how much I love how long the flights in this game take? It is so cool that the game gives you these moments of peace where you're forced to wait, getting lost in your thoughts, appreciating the gorgeous landscape. That's what my whole last video was about if you missed it. Go watch that after this. After getting to Red Ridge, I grabbed some of the gold from items that I had sold in the mail. Another super cool, awesome system that makes the world feel so realistic. God, okay, stay focused, don't get distracted. But the big quests that I set my sight on here were some group activities involving taking down a few NPCs and their followers around Blackrock Keep. This is apparently a horde-controlled fortress swarming with various Blackrock orcs and gnolls who've set up camp quite close to Lakeshire. As a warrior, I'm naturally going to have to group up with a bunch of other people for these quests or be at risk of them taking forever. Although luckily there is another warrior questing in the same area here named Queasy. I'm slightly worried about whether he's going to group with me, since the kill quests that we're on that involve just slaying monsters, those are always equally shared between a group, so they're efficient to do with others. But certain quests, like ones where you need to farm drops from mobs, in those, only one item will drop per kill, meaning grouping up actually makes things take a little bit longer. Even so, because WoW has the nicest players of any gaming community on Earth, this guy not only chooses to save me from some mobs when he sees that I'm getting beat up pretty badly, he also unprompted invites me to a group afterward and we begin killing monsters together, knocking out our quests. The biggest two we both seem to have involve farming some Shadowhide pendants from spellcasters nearby, as well as one quest to kill Lieutenant Fangor, a slightly tougher mob. We're waiting on Fangor to spawn, farming pendants, when one of us makes a mistake of pulling too many mobs at once. I'm not sure if it was myself or Queasy who made the error, but either way, Queasy was taking the brunt of the damage. That's when I run in to try to save him by slowing everyone by using Piercing Howl, successfully managing to CC enough mobs that he has a clear line to escape. See, it was worth it taking that talent point, even though I already have hamstring. Except now everybody is attacking me and I have no rage to do anything else, and I am taken down shortly after. What sucks about this is while I'm running back to my corpse to revive, it seems as though Fangor finally spawned and Queasy Queasy is able to solo him. I'm not sure if it's because I hadn't rezzed yet or what, but when I revive and make it to his corpse, there is no loot for me. I didn't get an item that I specifically needed for my quest. Once again, my League of Legends player brain kicks in, pissed that I chose to do a nice thing to help this guy out, because obviously now that he has what he came for, he doesn't have any reason to help me. He's just gonna run off and leave me in the dust, right? Except no, this dude chooses to just sit around AFKing with me, waiting for Fangor to spawn a second time. By now, I should know better. The WoW community is just nice like this. I know I keep joking about how, oh, I'm a scorned League of Legends player that never expects kindness in video games, but I genuinely think the Classic WoW community is way nicer than a normal person would expect. Especially for an MMO. I mean, MMO players are pretty famous for caring so much about efficient leveling and grinding and doing things the optimal way that most would probably throw their own grandmother under a bus if it meant getting 2k more XP per hour on some grind. To see a dude literally waiting around in the rain with me because he wanted to make sure that he didn't abandon me until we both completed our tasks, even if he had nothing else to do. I don't know, am I crazy for thinking that no other game has this? Like, not only did he help me, but he didn't even demand any kind of compensation for his kind gesture. While we were waiting for Fangor to spawn, we got a few group drops, and he didn't need roll for any of them, even though I feel like he had every right to. He just kept greed rolling, which meant that I got some of the extra loot. Eventually, Fangor did spawn, and we took him down together, where after he'd been slain, Queasy helped me grab the last of my Shadowhide pendants before we said goodbye once more. Seriously, thank you so much, Queasy. You were just another super nice guy, giving me yet another memorable group moment in World of Warcraft. I head back to Redridge to turn in my quests, getting some nice experience. And oh yeah, I should probably go and sell some of that loot that I picked up on our grind, right? This item's blue. I wonder if that means that it's any good. How much will it sell for? Holy hell! What? 70 gold? That can't be real. This has to be real world trading or something going on, right? There's no way it's actually gonna sell for that, will it? No, okay, that's real. I'm rich now. Wow, that feels good. When I got this cash in the mail, I could only think of two things. Firstly, now that I am apparently the richest player alive, I can't wait to go buy some gear upgrades and train up more skills that I'd been neglecting at the warrior trainer or weapons masters. But secondly, did Queasy know how valuable this drop was? He literally had every right to hit need since he was only there being kind to me. He is either the nicest person on the planet, or I'm sorry that you didn't know. You probably deserve this. And I think that was the moment that I slowly came to the realization, a realization I've been building through across this series, which is that theme park MMOs actually aren't all that bad. Generally speaking, most MMOs can famously be divided into one of two categories: theme parks and sandboxes. A sandbox MMO is a game that basically has very little developer direction. When someone makes a character, they're just dropped into the world and are free to explore, leveling and making progress in whatever way they want. You can choose to farm mobs at the starting zone, or you can make a beeline halfway across the world where you'll still find new quests and tasks to do. A theme park MMO is a game that has a lot more developer direction by comparison. Here, players don't really get to explore the world, as they are instead gated to certain zones appropriate for their level, typically with a system that will physically stop anyone from venturing off the developer-intended path. In the past, I'd kind of looked down on theme park games because I'd always thought that MMOs are the exact kind of genre that should have no barriers. I mean, if your goal is to create a huge virtual world, the real world doesn't have leveling zones. You can get on a plane now and go travel to Japan. You don't need to wait till you're level 45 to see it. That's why in the past, I had always preferred sandbox games like RuneScape that give players tons of freedom to adventure however they want. But all that being said, World of Warcraft has very quickly taught me that theme parks are just as fun as sandboxes, if not more so at times. Because even though I'm being limited when I play WoW in terms of where I can go explore in the world or what I can go off and do, because other players are being limited too, we are all funneled into the same areas to do the same things together. And that means we're always interacting. It means that WoW can create this group-only content where even if it doesn't have the kind of interesting lore I might be expecting attached to it, players can naturally make their own stories about interactions, teaming up with others to overcome a challenge. Not to mention, even with these leveling zones, I am still bumping into a few higher leveled players across my journey. Like after selling my stuff in Stormwind, I went back to Redridge Ridge to knock out the last of the Blackrock Keep quests, and as I grouped up with a couple more players for an assault on the keep to take down a few elites, suddenly a level 60 showed up, just offering to help us. I don't know why this dude was hanging around Red Ridge. It didn't seem like he was a guildmate of the other guy in our group. He was just a friendly player that wanted to help. This max level dude, Eki, obviously made it trivially easy to knock out these quests, and after he helped to make sure that everyone finished all their tasks, he sat around outside with us for a little bit, chatting briefly. Eki said that he was just happy to see the Classic era is still pulling in new players, especially since he's someone who's been playing the game for 20 plus years himself, having raised his own kids since he first started. It was a great little heartwarming moment, and all these kinds of moments that keep happening, they can only happen because I'm playing a theme park MMO. I'm on a low population server, and Classic era WoW doesn't even seem to be nearly as popular as some of the other versions like Anniversary, but even with so few players out there, this game has this built-in system to funnel us all together to experience content side by side and craft our own stories. I just have to say that. I got to admit it. I was wrong about theme park MMOs. In fact, some of these player-driven storylines I keep coming across, they might be better than any of the in-game lore I've found. I've already mentioned how my one complaint about WoW is that its lore and narrative has been doled out so slowly compared to Warcraft 3. It just doesn't have that same kind of intensely shocking story that's told at a breakneck pace. I was even starting to think that maybe the whole narrative with the Defias Brotherhood is going to be the most interesting story-driven part of this game. But even if that's the case, I don't care. Everything else is making the game totally worth it. I will keep playing it just because of these great community moments, lore, and in-game narrative be damned. That is what I was thinking right before WoW just decided to prove me completely wrong. After turning in those last few Red Ridge quests, I got another cool item from one of them, the Orc Crusher, a two-handed mace that I could use after I went off to train that weapon skill. And that reminded me, I could probably get a ton of other upgrades for my gear right now, considering all the gold I had. I never got around to spending that before. I did have a few pieces of pretty solid gear for my level, like the Cape of the Brotherhood that I got from my first kill on Edwin Van Cleef, but some of the other items I had were fairly basic, with upgrades not really costing that much in total. I was also excited to get some new items because it would let me try stacking certain attributes. I'd since learned that WoW has a similar system to Warcraft 3, where characters will grow stronger with different stats, but different attributes are better or worse for you depending on your class. Strength seems like an obvious stat that I should be stacking for warriors, since it increases my melee attack power and how much damage I can block with a shield. That's obviously going to be a huge help, but agility also seems like a kind of neat attribute to go for, as increasing critical strike and dodge seems fun. Either way, I got a new chest piece along with a couple rings and a few other items that didn't cost too much, eager to head over to the mailbox to open up all the deliveries and try them on. And holy hell, let me say, I love how my character model changes so drastically with this new armor. I think modern MMOs and modern multiplayer games in general have had an issue for a while where they tunnel vision so hard on making outfits and items look wildly spectacular with crazy particle effects and visuals, but that kind of just makes characters look like a big flashy blob to the untrained eye. I have no idea what I'm actually looking at or why one spectacular blob is supposed to be better or worse than another. By comparison, seeing the simple change of my breastplate go from this dull drab gray to a fiery red plate mail, that injected dopamine directly into my veins. While I was in Stormwind, I also stopped by the city architect Barros Alexton because he had a low-level quest I abandoned before, tasking us with finding an old compass from his family's destroyed home in Westfall. This quest is too low for my level to be worth it according to the game, which is why its name is grayed out in my quest log, but I figured I should go back and do it anyway. Who knows where a quest is going to lead me after all? I almost abandoned that very first Defias Brotherhood one back in Elwyn. After grabbing the compass, I stuck around Westfall to mine some more copper nodes, eventually moving off to Elwyn to search for more. There's something that just feels right to me about mining resources in an MMO. Not many things give me the same high that gathering skills do, but Maybe that just lights up the same part of my brain that's also obsessed with Lego and watches and model trains and EDM, if you catch my drift. That's when I ran into a neat surprise. After making my way through Elwyn, I was heading up to Stormwind to smelt some of the copper I'd gathered when I bumped into some weird thing happening with a few NPCs at the city gates. A player tells me it has something to do with the Onyxia quest, which means nothing to me, but it was still really cool to see how the narrative quest moments in WoW that otherwise could have been cutscenes actually play out in the world and aren't instanced. Since they occur among all the other players, new players like me can gawk at what we might find eventually, even if we have no idea what's going on. I just thought that was a neat moment. That makes me feel a bit more eager to go out and find a new story of my own, and although I had been through quite a bit of the human lands lately, I hadn't checked on the Dwarven regions in a while, so I went up to Dunmorrow to see if there was anything new waiting for me. It's here that I find a quest sending me further north toward the Wetlands, a new region I hadn't discovered. This all begins when I meet a dwarf near a tunnel that tells me some Blackrock orcs have set up camp in Dun Algaz, threatening to cut off Alliance forces from Menethil Harbor. I head through the tunnel to deal with them, and okay, I don't know why, but this little pocket that I emerged into, it felt really beautiful and cozy in a way. If any of you have ever watched any Austin's videos, he has this series about unremarkable and odd places in video games, the sort of liminal spaces that only games can make that feel strange, but also kind of beautiful. This felt like something plucked straight out of that series. It made me wish that I'd been exploring the map a bit more. I continue onward and come across the orcs, which are a part of another cozy enclave where I need to fight through various grunts and scouts who have taken over a Dwarven encampment. It's moments like this that I can really appreciate how slow Classic's combat is, since it means that I get to spend a good amount of time in this corner of the map instead of just blasting right through it. When I finish the quest, I decide to suicide into the building just to see if there is any sort of special secret inside, where I do catch a glimpse of a named elite mob before getting taken down. Maybe that's why I like this area so much. I think MMOs are at their best when they not only create a big, beautiful world, but they also make that world feel dense with little secrets and hidden treasures tucked away in every corner of the map, even places you might not expect. I mean, I don't know if this guy drops anything, and I don't have the patience to fight my way to him again, but it's a great reminder that this world can be dense with stories and secrets. The coziness of this enclave is immediately contrasted by how wide, open, and beautiful the wetlands are. Holy hell, this is a gorgeous zone. I cannot wait to spend more time here. I swear, I'm probably spending like half of my playtime in this game just getting distracted by how beautiful the world is. The way the sunlight casts these god rays through the trees, it captivates me every time I see it. How does this game from 2004 look so good? My quest through the wetlands leads me to Menethil Harbor, where I'm immediately excited to find a new Alliance hub. Here I can restock on food, set my Hearthstone, and gather new quests, including one from a dude who says that he wants to send me to Kalimdor, like he is the prophet from Warcraft 3 or something. There's so much more I want to explore and discover from here and beyond, but I know in the back of my head there is one region that I have been saving, waiting to explore fully, which you guys were right when you told me it was the region that would sell me on WoW. I had intentionally been avoiding Duskwood until now because I knew that this area was going to be good. I ventured into it a little bit in episode 1, stumbling into the town of Darkshire, where a citizens band called the Night Watch have gathered together to fight back the monsters in the haunted woods, something that they need to do because Stormwind has abandoned them too. Duskwood appeared to be one of the more mysterious regions that I had come across as well, since this area was way more threatening, with monsters roaming around in what appears to be a series of woods cursed with permanent night. Other than Darkshire, I explored a little bit down a road toward the west, meeting some more members of the Night Watch who gave me one quest to kill a few low-level spiders. I also met Jitters, a funny guy chilling out in the ruins of a town near Ravenhill Cemetery, where he gave me a quest to go and get some crab legs he apparently loves, served at the Darkshire Inn. But when I went to ask the cook about them, he let me in on a secret. Those crab crab legs are just spider meat. I naturally helped him gather some by slaying spiders, eventually being rewarded with a bit of XP, as well as a recipe to make my own spider crab legs that I probably just sold to a vendor because that was my MO before learning about professions. Apart from these few quests, though, I had mostly stayed away from Duskwood since a large number of the monsters out-leveled me, and I figured it might be more fun to come back later when I was a high enough level that I could do every quest here at once. After a few of my adventures through the wetlands, it looked like I was probably getting to that point, so I made my way back to Duskwood to see what it had in store. After arriving in Darkshire, I started off by just taking as many quests as were available, eager to see if one of them might give me a lore explanation why this area is so cursed compared to the other first 3 zones I encountered. I'm tasked by the leader of the Night Watch to go and slay some skeletal warriors and mages that have risen nearby, before I'm then tasked by another to go and kill some of the Worgen, which seem to be WoW's version of werewolves. The skeletons seem like a normal quest, but the Worgen are actually kind of interesting. Warcraft's universe has done a really great job of giving a story origin to why any mobs exist that you might face. Like, we know the kobolds infest the mines because the Defias Brotherhood hired them to plunder resources. The Defias themselves exist because they're the scorned citizens from the old Stonemasons Guild. And of course, the undead in this game, we know, either come from the Scourge, spread by the Lich King, the Forsaken, having broken free from his control, or some of them are probably just conjured by warlocks and necromancers. But the Worgen are interesting. They're a mystery. They aren't a part of the Horde. They aren't a part of the Scourge. Where did they come from, and what are they doing here? I'm wondering about this as I gather the last few quests in Darkshire, when suddenly I notice one quest's name that I had heard from you guys was a particularly great one, The Legend of Stalvin. It begins when I meet Madame Ava in Darkshire. She tells me the previous night she had some strange and terrible vision of her granddaughter in great danger. And being a witchy woman, upon waking, she does a ritual that reveals only the name Stalvin to her, asking if I could figure out what's going on. I head to the clerk in the town hall to ask if this Stalvin character has ever been listed as a local resident, at which point he says Stalvin Mistmantle does have a record, with his most recent address being the Moonbrook Schoolhouse. That sends me heading off to Westfall to search around the schoolhouse, seeing if I can find any clues. And side note, this is when I notice something really neat and creative that WoW does I need to mention. Since this is a game from 2004 made over the course of about 5 years, you can occasionally run into a few corners that have been cut by the developers to save some time. One of these is that a lot of assets are reused from region to region in-game. Town halls all have the same layout across human zones, for example, as do inns and other residences. That said, occasionally you will come across a building that has the same bones as all the others, but with different textures and a different interior. Heading into the Moonbrook Schoolhouse, for instance, you can see that this building is laid out like any other town hall, except it is in disrepair. Tables and chairs have been smashed and trash litters the floor. This makes stepping into the building feel kind of eerie. You're struck with this sense of familiarity combined with the sense that something has gone very wrong. I search the wreckage, finding a footlocker on the floor, which contains a dusty letter, but the moment I open it, some ghost appears demanding I let the legend of Stalvin rest. This was a really cool surprise that I was not expecting and made me want to figure out what was going on even more. I take the letter back to Darkshire, reading it along the way. Here I can see that Stalvin was writing his former headmaster, informing him that he's taken a job tutoring children in Moonbrook. Things have apparently gone so well thus far, the town mayor has commissioned him to run a school. Upon meeting with the registrar, he then notices another address listed by Stalvin's name, scratched out in the records. This time it's the inn found in Goldshire, suggesting that I go check there. So I head off to look for more clues. Here, the innkeeper tells me to check the room upstairs, where a strange figure left a chest of letters, and upon searching that chest, I find another message giving me another clue. This letter from Stalvin, meant for some noble in Stormwind, states that Stalvin was forced to abandon Moonbrook with the Defias takeover, but seemingly found employment tutoring this rich person's children. I get a little stumped for a while, not really knowing where I should go next. I should probably go search for that noble person in Stormwind to find the next clue for the story. I eventually bump into a lower class guy who states states his father was the caretaker of the noble family before he had to mop up the blood after a massacre. He lets me search through their remaining items left by that noble family that I guess was slaughtered. I searched to find yet another journal page, and now excited to read it and find out more, but once again, a mysterious spirit shows up trying to stop me before I defeat her. This letter reveals that Stalvin was tutoring the two children of this noble, Giles, a boy who he describes as a challenge to educate, a very good medieval burn. But there's also an elder daughter, Taloa, who Stalvin couldn't help but notice her captivating beauty. Oh god, I don't like where this is going. She is on the cusp of womanhood now. Supposedly the Lord has arranged her marriage for the next year, but I digress. This week I will accompany the family to the summer cottage near the Eastvale logging camp. Well, at least that tells me where I'm supposed to go next. I head to Eastvale, meeting a man who says there's another chest of journal pages upstairs in the nearby building. I head up, taking a page and defeating another spirit who once again tries to stop me from making my YouTube video. On reading the journal, I come to find that things have only gotten worse, as Stalvin describes a time when Taloa gave him a flower and he clearly mistook it as some kind of romantic gesture. The owner of the house tells me to show the letter to the innkeeper in Darkshire. It's there I hear again about the nobles that were slaughtered and how nobody was able to prove the guilt of that crazy man in the woods. He gives me some journal pages that he found and asks me to take both of ours to the Night Watch Guard, but of course not before I read them. Anger and fury, the likes of which I never knew existed. As I was instructing Giles in the meaning of numbers, Taloa appears before me with a suitor, holding hands in public nonetheless. Oh god, holding hands, don't demonetize me, YouTube. Taloa simply said, "Oh, that's just my tutor, Uncle Stalvin. He's a nice old man." Downward spiral of despair. First she mocks me and now she is engaged. The ungracious charlatan was pretending to love when truly she desired to hurt me all along. A black void lurks within me now, and it grows with each waking moment. The blood I shall spill pales in comparison to the tears I have shed. I don't like that. As I take these pages to the commander of the Night Watch, she asks for confirmation that these last pages are indeed Stalvin's handwriting, so I go to the registrar, who states exactly that. The commander then says that's all the proof she needs to bring justice to this creep, who has apparently caused a great deal of damage, slaughtering many innocents and committing various crimes that he must be executed for. I'm then sent to go do the deed at Stalvin's cottage north of here. As I head north to find the cottage, I see that it's surrounded by undead, and upon entering, it's revealed Stalvin has become a literal ghoul, asking when he notices my footsteps, "Taloa, is that you?" And he's level 32. Oh god, I didn't realize that I was underleveled for this quest. He kills me almost instantly. But on making my way back to the corpse to revive, look, it's Queasy, my buddy who let me have the super expensive armor. God, I love seeing the same players around on these servers. We team up for one last job together, taking down Stalvin. I grab his family ring and take it to Madame Ava, completing the quest and being rewarded with a pretty sick weapon upgrade in the Crescent of Forlorn Spirits, a one-handed axe. Oh boy, maybe I could dual wield this with my buzzsaw. But okay, I can see why everybody loves this quest. It is memorable. I don't know if anyone's ever made this connection before, but I would almost say that this story that Blizzard chose to tell here is almost kind of brave. The narrative itself is really done well and is the exact kind of story that does great in an MMO. Because this quest not only sends us on a big globe-trotting adventure through all kinds of regions as we unravel a suspenseful mystery, but it also builds out the world in a really cool way. Getting to hear about the characters that inhabit Azeroth and what the sorts of buildings we explore were used for in the past, that does a lot in making this game feel like it's not just a video game designed by a person, but truly a real world with characters living their lives. I'd also say this story is great because it doesn't spell everything out for you. We learn who Stalvin was, the girl he became obsessed with, and we're told that he slaughtered tons of innocent civilians, but you don't actually get to see any of it. You have to connect the dots yourself, and whatever horrors you can imagine in your own head are probably darker than any cutscene that somebody at Blizzard could have tried to put in game. It's really great. It's a fantastic quest. The only issue I have with it is there is one massive plot hole. The quest begins with us going to the town registrar asking who Stalvin is, since nobody knows his backstory or where he might be, but it ends with another NPC 10 feet away telling us she knows all about Stalvin, where he is exactly, and how he needs to be executed for his crimes. That's a kind of annoying plot hole, but something I can forgive, because as I said, I'm kind of impressed with how brave Blizzard was to put this story in their game. Because the story of Stalvin is clearly the story of a shy, introverted teacher who misinterprets the kindness of a girl he's tutoring as some kind of romantic gesture, building up the idea of her in his head to a point she becomes an obsession that turns him into a ghoulish monster. And honestly, speaking as a shy, introverted, nerdy kid that likes to play MMOs, that can hit a little too close to home. I mean, it is not an uncommon thing for teenage boys to mistake a girl's kindness as some kind of romantic gesture, where if a kid's not careful, they can become a little obsessed, turning into a bit of a creep. That's just a phase I think a lot of people have to go through as they start to mature. But even so, that makes this impressive to me, that Blizzard were brave enough to tell that kind of story in their game, to put such a relatable human flaw into a character, but say point blank, there is no redemption. This is wrong. Don't be a ghoul. Who knows? Maybe that did some kind of good for kids that needed to hear a story like this at a formative point in their life. Hey, it's a story that apparently Blizzard themselves needed to hear, as it turned out they could be a bit of a creepy guy that becomes a monster too. I know I just went on a big rant earlier in this video saying that maybe the player-driven stories found in WoW are better than the in-game lore, but now I'm starting to have second thoughts. Does World of Warcraft have both? Great, unique, player-driven narratives and amazing, thoughtful in-game quests too? That's kind of unfair to all the other games out there if this one is that good. And it turns out, it just gets better. Before long, I was zipping all across Darkshire, searching for other quests that I could get my hands on. Because as cool as Stalvin's story was, I still needed more answers on what's going on in this region. Why is it permanently night? I still don't know what the Worgen are. What curses blighted this area, and where did they come from? It takes a while to find anything resembling an answer, because Duskwood is apparently just peppered with tons of amazing stories. One quest I find sends me off to check on an old hermit that's living in the Ravenhill Cemetery. After meeting up, he says that he's doing okay, except all the dangers nearby are preventing him from going into town, catching up on some errands, asking if I can run them for him. It seems like a run-of-the-mill fetch quest, but he then says that he specifically needs ghost hair thread from Madame Ava, so I head over and she tells me I need to steal some by using a spectral comb on Blind Mary, a ghost nearby. I eventually find the ghost, and upon speaking to her, I learn she tore out her own eyes because she found herself so hideous she couldn't bear her own sight. I kind of anticipate this is going to unlock some big new quest chain to explore the story further, but no! After I comb her hair, she just sends me off with the thread to give to the hermit. There is no follow-up story about how I can lay her to rest or something like that. On the one hand, this almost felt a little disappointing. Like, was this a story Blizzard was originally gonna flesh out more, but they just ran out of time? Maybe not. Maybe Blizzard just not only took the time to create all these amazing in-game quests, but also took the time to add these little bits of flavor just to make your mind wander even further and become even more immersed in this world. Speaking of fleshing out the world, Duskwood didn't stop impressing me there. Later on, as I was running around doing quests, I ran into a big dead abomination from Warcraft 3 named Stitches. I don't know what he is or what he's doing here, but I noticed the Night Watch Guard that are normally here to give out quests at this fork in the road, they're gone. Are they dead? Did Stitches kill them? Wait, can quest givers die at the hands of NPCs of rival factions? I always knew that Horde and Alliance players could fight each other on PvP worlds, but can you also fight NPCs in every town? That might be the coolest thing I've ever heard. It's only then I realized that maybe those Blackrock orcs that I kept running into in Red Ridge wouldn't be hostile to me if I was on the Horde. Maybe every NPC in this game has some kind of aggression that's baked into what faction and race you've chosen. That is just amazingly cool. How does this game get better and better the longer I play? But all of this, even all of this, was not the thing that sold me on, I guess, just becoming a full-time WoW YouTuber for the foreseeable future. The thing that did that was an unassuming quest given to me by Sven. Camped out back west, nearby the river dividing Duskwood from Westfall, is a man named Sven Jorgen. When I first approach him, Sven gives me a quest, stating that he used to work on one of the farms in the southeast of Duskwood until one day dark riders from the Deadwind Pass descended upon his farm and slaughtered his family while he was away. Apparently, when he returned home, he saw some shadowy figure skulking nearby his barn, burying an item, and he wants me to go back and fetch that item. Now, when I first picked up this quest, I thought, such is the life of an NPC in the Warcraft universe. Like, yeah, it's a sad story. You wake up one day and your family is dead. It's not exactly fun, but I've played tons of MMOs and RPGs where I run into countless NPCs with vague, sad backstories like this. I don't think that I'm going to start caring about one now. I am curious to go back to his barn and figure out what was buried there, as well as who these mysterious Dark Riders are. After finding the farm, which is crawling with Defias Brotherhood for some reason, just more lore I have to figure out later, I eventually stumble upon a mound of earth where I dig up the pages of a journal. Upon reading them, I'm told the story of a mysterious character who was a part of a group that found some scythe in Roland's Doom. Apparently, once he took that scythe, his party was attacked and he was forced to flee. The journal then goes on into pretty dark writing about how these people were slaughtered, although I am given one insight from it. I lost the scythe in my frantic flight, but it may have been that scythe that brought the Worgen to Duskwood. Okay, that sounds like we are starting to get at least one answer to a few of our questions. Apparently, this character hid out on Sven's farm from some curse he believed to be following him, which we learn on the final page, but the rest of the book is blank. I take the book back to Sven, who wants to figure out who this shadowy figure was. He suggests I ask townsfolk who might be able to assist me. On asking around, I learn that the person who bought this book was apparently a jittery chap. Oh wait, I think I know who it might be. I head back out to the Ravenhill Cemetery where I find Jitters, who confesses he was the one who wrote it and the person that was hiding at Sven's farm. He tells me that book I found was only half finished and he has the completed version, which I should take to Sven myself. But I figure first, let's go ahead and read it, right? I mean, Warcraft's lore is so great to dive into. How bad can this tragedy be? A few days after I arrived at the barn, Sven left his farm for Darkshire. He kissed his wife and smiled to his children and promised to return soon with toys and sweets. The poor man, that was the last time he saw his family unmutilated. At least they parted happily, and at least his wife was the first to die, freed from seeing the slaughter of her children. Oh god, I don't know if I want to keep reading this. I brought the Black Riders to Sven's farm. My discovery of the scythe not only unleashed the Worgen upon Duskwood, it drew the riders from the Deadwind Pass. I know this because just before they began their slaughter, they asked one question to Sven's wife as she held her children close. The Scythe of Elune. It must be the same cursed thing I drew from the rocks of Roland's Doom days before. It was what the Black Riders sought, and it was what would kill Sven's family. All right, mystery solved. Let's go and turn this quest in. The scythe? Of course I know where it is. She looked at the riders with steady eyes, and I would have sworn she told the truth had I known better. Her gambit paid off. The same rider who uttered the question before bent his head slightly toward her and shrieked, "Where?" "I'll take you, all of you," she said, and I could see a small hope flicker behind her eyes. "But the way is far, and my children would slow us. We must leave them." Her trick was simple, but if it worked, it would lead the riders away from the farm. She would be lost, but her children would be safe. Although I have never been a student of the light, I prayed fiercely for her. Please let them believe. One rider looked up. A light crept from the rider toward the woman, shaping itself into a grim white hand. When the hand reached her, it spread its fingers over her head and squeezed. Sven's wife stood rigid as a board. After a few moments of this torture, the hand released her, dropping her to her knees. This woman lies. She has not seen the scythe. After this, the riders stooped slightly, and then, in the old shrieking voice it had used earlier, these were the final words it uttered. "The Lord has spoken. Kill them." All right, I don't know what it was, but there was something about this that got to me. Maybe it's just the fact that I'm a dad now or something. I don't know, but how Did World of Warcraft actually make me care about some random NPC's backstory? I've already come across this kind of backstory so often in RPGs. Some hero forced to leave home. I mean, so many other AAA games sprinkle that kind of narrative into all of their worlds. Only World of Warcraft, though, had the balls to actually take that commonplace idea and spell out how heartbreaking it would be with this horrifying depiction of a poor woman trying and failing to save her children before they were mercilessly slaughtered. World of Warcraft is so metal. Also, it was really cool hearing about the Scythe of Elune. Like, I don't know what that is yet. Maybe this is a Staff of Armadale situation where someone's trying to use an ancient artifact to ascend to godhood. But I already know it's got to be important. After all, every time I move a night elf in Warcraft 3, they would always say, "Elune, guide me." WoW is finally even giving me some great connections to Warcraft 3. It is amazing how this just gets better and better, but it doesn't stop there. In all this running around Duskwood, at one point while I was just heading down the road and trying to contemplate this incredible story, I noticed something off the corner of my eye. I wonder what this was. Was this a player fighting some monsters, maybe some familiar that wandered off? But when I go to investigate, an NPC wolf had seen prey, hunted, and killed it? What? This game came out half a decade before Call of Duty invented fish or whatever. It just broke my heart with some of the most incredible writing I've ever seen in a video game. It has so many features already that build Azeroth out into this incredible alive world. How did the developers have time to program something as useless and unnecessary? This is just the greatest game I've ever played. That's what broke me. I can't doubt World of Warcraft anymore. I can't doubt the quality of this title. I eagerly returned to Sven, wanting to help him take his revenge. He says we'll do so by slaying Morbent Fell, a nearby alley of the Dark Riders, and some necromancer. Before I can do that, I have to prove my worth, slaying some skeletal riders, before then being sent on a whole cross-world quest to craft a unique item that will render Morbent weak. I'm sent off to Stormwind to learn of some ancient metal that can be used, where I then have to go off to Menethil Harbor, finding the remains of a Koltiran ship carrying special ingots which have been stolen by Murlocs that I then need to slay before taking it to a Dwarven weaponsmith who makes the unique item, sending me back to Sven after all that time. Like, that whole arc could have been a whole video right there on YouTube. I mean, there's just too much good stuff to talk about in this game. But finally, after so many trials and tribulations, I group up with a bunch of other players who helped me take down Morbent Fell. Sven has earned his revenge, and upon returning to him, I'm rewarded with my very first piece of headgear that looks so awesome, because of course I am. Gosh, this game is just the best. But yeah, I was gonna do Stockades next and continue the Defias storyline in this episode, because I think I'm high enough level now, but I think we've already stumbled across so many great stories. We can save that one for next time. Please subscribe if you would like to watch that. I will try to get that episode out as soon as possible, and thank you very much to everyone in the WoW community who has welcomed me with open arms in my first few videos on World of Warcraft, encouraging me to keep playing the game and making more. You guys are seriously so nice. I hope you'll keep watching and supporting my content. If you would like to go above and beyond in supporting me, you can become a channel member or go and check out Displate. They are seriously a great sponsor that I am so glad to have supporting this episode. But even just liking, commenting, going off to watch another video of mine, that is more than enough support. And as long as you guys keep watching, I'll keep making more videos coming out soon. But until then, whenever I see you all next, thank you very much for watching this video. Good luck in solo queue, and have a wonderful day.